Hello, my name is Amanda Hall, Rasmussen College student. My presentation of chosen pathological condition on Alzheimer's disease is being submitted on March 13th of 2015 for instructor Heather Heck, Structure and Function of the Human Body course. During this presentation, I will be discussing what Alzheimer's disease is, what causes the disease, which systems are affected by the disease, as well as organs. I will be discussing the short-term and long-term effects of Alzheimer's disease, and we will be discussing treatments of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease that destroys memory and other important mental functions. It's the most common cause of dementia. Let's look at a video about the breakdown of Alzheimer's and how it affects the brain and how the cells are affected, as well as neurons and neurotransmitters in sending information and signals to the brain for its function. Here's our video.
The human brain is a remarkable organ. Complex chemical and electrical processes take place within our brains that let us speak, move, see, remember, feel emotions, and make decisions. Inside a normal, healthy brain, billions of cells, called neurons, constantly communicate with one another. They receive messages from each other as electrical charges travel down the axon to the end of the neuron. The electrical charges release chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. The transmitters move across microscopic gaps or synapses between neurons. They bind to receptor sites on the dendrites of the next neuron. This cellular circuitry enables communication within the brain. Healthy neurotransmission is important for the brain to function well. Alzheimer's disease disrupts this intricate interplay. By compromising the ability of neurons to communicate with one another, the disease over time destroys memory and thinking skills. Scientific research has revealed some of the brain changes that take place in Alzheimer's disease. Abnormal structures called beta-amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles are classic biological hallmarks of the disease. Plaques form when specific proteins in the neuron's cell membrane are processed differently. Normally, an enzyme called alpha secretase snips amyloid precursor protein, or APP, releasing a fragment. A second enzyme, gamma secretase, also snips APP in another place. These released fragments are thought to benefit neurons. In Alzheimer's disease, the first cut is made most often by another enzyme, beta secretase. That, combined with the cut made by gamma secretase, results in the release of short fragments of APP called beta amyloid. When these fragments clump together, they become toxic and interfere with the function of neurons. As more fragments are added, these oligomers increase in size and become insoluble, eventually forming beta-amyloid plaques. Neurofibrillary tangles are made when a protein called tau is modified. In normal brain cells, tau stabilizes structures critical to the cell's internal transport system. Nutrients and other cellular cargo are carried up and down the structures called microtubules to all parts of the neuron. In Alzheimer's disease, abnormal tau separates from the microtubules, causing them to fall apart. Strands of this tau combine to form tangles inside the neuron, disabling the transport system and destroying the cell. Neurons in certain brain regions disconnect from each other and eventually die, causing memory loss. As these processes continue, the brain shrinks and loses function. We now know a great deal about changes that take place in the brain with Alzheimer's disease, but there is still much to learn. What other changes are taking place in the aging brain and its cells? Scientific research is helping to unravel the mystery of Alzheimer's and related brain disorders. As we learn more, researchers move ever closer to discovering ways to treat and ultimately prevent this devastating fatal disease.
Okay, so that video explained a little bit of Alzheimer's disease and what effects it has on the brain of a patient diagnosed with this disease. Let's move on now. To the stages of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is a slow disease that progresses in 3 stages. An early preclinical stage with no symptoms, a middle stage of mild cognitive impairment, and a final stage of Alzheimer's dementia. In the figure, it shows the 3 stages from mild, moderate, and to severe. In mild, it could last 2 to 4 years, marked by minor memory loss as well as difficulty learning and remembering new information. Long-term memory and some reasoning still remain intact at this time. Patients may be aware of their decline and they may try and hide it from family, doctors, and such. Moderate lasts 2 to 10 years. Patient experiences withdrawal, confusion, increasing difficulty in self-care and daily tasks, poor judgment, and difficulty communicating. Behavioral changes often include anger, anxiety, frustration, and restlessness at this point. Caregiver assistance becomes more increasingly necessary at this time. In severe cases, they usually last 1 to 3 years. Patients are completely incapacitated, retreat into themselves, and will not eat unless fed. They might not speak, and they may not recognize family members or people they see on a daily basis. They will lose bodily function, control of their swallowing, their bladder, their bowel movements. They will have violent episodes and aggression, which are common at this stage. Some of the causes of Alzheimer's disease are age-related changes in the brain. Certain parts in the brain shrink, especially the prefrontal cortex. This is the area in front of the frontal lobe, known for learning, planning, and memory. Changes in neurons and neurotransmitters affect communication between neurons. In certain brain regions, communication between the neurons can be reduced because of white matter. This is myelin-covered axons, and it is degraded or lost. Causes of Alzheimer's disease are also changes in the brain's blood vessels. Blood flow can be reduced because arteries narrow and less growth of new capillaries occur. Damage by free radicals increase. These are oxygen and nitrogen molecules that combine easily with other molecules. Free radicals are generated in the mitochondria, which are structures found in all cells, including neurons. Free radicals can also damage the neuron's cell membrane or its DNA. The production of radicals can set off a chain reaction that is called oxidative damage. Here are some symptoms of Alzheimer's disease: forgetfulness, mild confusion, repeating statements, misplacing possessions, depression, anxiety, mood swings, irritability, also changes in sleeping habits, wandering, loss of inhibitions, delusions, forgetting simple words, trouble communicating, and also loss of appetite. Organ systems affected by Alzheimer's are the cerebrum. It can no longer remember, problem solve, and cannot control movement of the body. The brainstem can no longer control breathing, heart rate and blood pressure. Arteries, veins, and capillaries cannot carry out as much oxygen and blood to the brain. Plaques and tangles on the nervous system can cause this. The cortex can no longer interpret sensations, sights, or sounds. As the figure shows here are what some of the plaques and tangles look like that can keep the brain from receiving messages for functions, just like we had seen in the video previously. Some organs and tissues that can be affected by Alzheimer's disease are the brain, neurons, nerve cells, and motor skills. Functions affected are important skills for the brain, such as ability to read, sing, engage in crafts, tell stories, or even reminisce about past times. Here are some long-term and short-term effects of Alzheimer's disease. Short-term can be not understanding where you are, you lose things easily, forget how to do everyday things, forget simple words, disorientation of time, and some long-term effects are loss of speech, loss of movement, loss of memories, become aggressive, unable to recognize family, and also loss of appetite. Here are some treatments and preventions of Alzheimer's disease. Some drugs that I've found is NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These drugs, other than aspirin, may prevent the onset of Alzheimer's in older adults. A study showed that NSAIDs decreased a person's risk of Alzheimer's by 80%. Cholinesterase inhibitors, a drug used to boost levels of cell-to-cell communication chemical depleted in the brain by Alzheimer's. And memantine, also known as Namenda, a drug that works in another brain cell communication network and slows the progression of symptoms with moderate to severe Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, there is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. Most patients will need to be admitted to a 24-hour care facility for treatment and help with daily activities. Here in this figure is shown some ladies and staff dancing at an Alzheimer's unit at Bedside Manor in Oakland. Alzheimer's and dementia units are usually kept separate in a nursing facility and will require 24-hour care where a caregiver is designated to a select few throughout the whole day to meet their needs. And these are my references. So in conclusion of this presentation, we have discussed what Alzheimer's is, what causes Alzheimer's disease, what systems in the body are affected as well as organs, some short and long-term effects of the disease, and some treatments for Alzheimer's disease. Also, we went over the care facilities that will be needed and provided in the last stages of Alzheimer's and dementia for patient care. Thank you very much.